Hey Emma,
Yes, Madelyn.
have you heard that the makers of the chill pill have decided to make a new medicine for when you should be happy about something?
No, what is this new medicine?
It's called the Glad Dose. Hello, and welcome to Talk This.
It's dangerous to podcast alone.
See, I thought that one was subtle.
Yeah, it was. We were talking about Abzû before the episode's recording started, so I had that stuck on my brain for a second. So I was like, "Is this some sort of like language pun that I don't get?" And then I was like, "Oh right, the other one is Portal." And then I understood.
At first, I was thinking about trying to do something with like dose meaning two and being like doubly glad. And of course, if you follow Split Screen, which you should be, you probably saw in the blog that went up yesterday. And now that I've said that, it has to have gone up yesterday.
Yes.
I don't know if my joke made it in, but if it didn't, there's a guy in My Hero Academia that has like, he's like 15, right? Because he's in Hero High School. He's like 10-pack abs. So that's an Abzû right there. I think we need to make that happen as like a term for objectifying men and women. People
Abzû.
of all gender spectrums online.
God, this show has so much Abzû.
Like, wow, that's a verifiable ab menagerie over there.
Ab menagerie.
Ab aquarium.
Oh my god.
Ab
Sure.
dinosaur enclosure.
Sure. I think this term needs some editing before it goes viral. But
Abzû tycoon, where you sculpt the abs and invite visitors to enjoy. Anyway, welcome to Talk This. It is dangerous to podcast alone, folks. And this week, it's finally that fateful day. I feel like I've been whining about Portal on this podcast, possibly since the very beginning.
yeah, just wait until the new Super Smash Bros. Come out, and then you can whine about Super Smash Bros. On the podcast.
I'm just alienating all of our viewership. I'm like,
Yeah.
I hate Portal. I hate Super Smash.
We just lost our entire viewership. Half of them liked Portal, half of them liked Super Smash Bros., and now they're all gone.
Yes, there's no overlap in the fandom for those two games. So I've been whining about Portal since pre-Talk This, really, but ever since Talk This began. And now, folks, the day is finally here. We have pulled Portal as our old game this week, and I realized we just spent like 3 minutes talking about Abzû without explaining to anyone that our new game is in fact titled Abzû.
Yes.
So I hope that you picked up on that. And
Yes.
weren't just listening on through being like, I don't know what they're talking about, but these Talk This girls sure are funny.
You know what you could do? You could go back to our previous episode and hear us announce the games, and then you would know, going into this one, what you were getting into.
But what about the new fans, Emma?
That's true.
Not very accessible.
We try.
We're a sequel game here. We're not trying to welcome you in. Just kidding. Welcome. Anyway, so it's like short games week here on Talk This. Since like both of these games together, like how long is Portal?
I don't know. How long is Portal?
I don't know. I haven't played the whole thing. It's short, though.
Yeah, I believe it is relatively short.
Both of these games together don't total the full, like, quarter of a length of many of our games that we discuss on the episode. So it's mini week here at Talk This. I'm just stalling talking about Portal. But I guess
Madelyn, why don't you explain where your irrational hatred of this beloved classic comes from?
Okay. Have I told this story to you?
Probably, but you're not talking to me.
I was just wondering if it was also a new story for you. But I almost called you viewers. But listeners, it's almost as if you're going to be viewers. Because let me set the scene. The year is 2013. The place is Pentland Tower, floor 9. Hecht Residential College. The University of Miami. The one in Coral Gables, Florida, not the one in Ohio. Where, lo and behold, there she is. Young Madelyn. So young. So naive. So I already said she was young. I had something else clever to say, but it's gone. So young. So naive. So still kind of attached to video games. This is like prior to me completely falling off the wagon, right?
Yeah.
I had still been living with a console mostly full-time until I went to college. And this is pre sort of my video game winter, which I feel like happens my sophomore and junior year of high school, where I just like don't really play high school. College. Where I just don't really play video games for a while.
Now I'm so old, college feels like high school.
It kind of does. Is the suspense building yet, listeners? Anyway, here we are, Pentland Tower 9, the corner room. I don't remember what the name of the room was, but in the dorm room of not one, but nay 2 freshman boys. Mm-hmm. One of which was none other, and the owner of the Xbox 360, on which our main story takes place, was none other than Clickbait Boyfriend. Pre-Clickbait Boyfriend. In fact, boyfriend. So you can imagine, it's pre-boyfriend, but it's not pre-Clickbait Boyfriend as an attractive dude. So here we are, me, I live on Pentland Tower 8, conveniently, me, a bunch of my friends from Pentland Tower 8, a couple of guys from Pentland Tower floor 9, all in this dorm room with Clickbait Boyfriend and his roommate, who's also a video game fan. And we're all playing on Clickbait Boyfriend's Xbox 360. Now, long-time listeners of the podcast might notice that we are not an Xbox family here on Talk This. We are a PlayStation family. We are Nintendo dabblers. But we are, if anything, not. We harbor an antipathy towards the Xbox.
Yes.
And all of its ancestors and its incarnations yet to come.
Yeah.
So here I am. This is turning into a very long story. It's not very interesting.
It's fascinating.
So here I am in this dorm room, and lo and behold, I've walked in, and people are playing Portal 2, local co-op. And I know what you're thinking, long-time listener. You're thinking, oh, perfect. What do the Talk This sisters love more than the local co-op? Well, Crash Team Racing, obviously, but other than that...
Nothing.
Pretty much nothing. Yeah, local co-op, pretty much at the top of my list of things that I love. And you know what? I'll level with you, Talk This listener. I think that I'm a pretty smart person. I'm generally pretty good at things right away. And have always been so. So now you really identify with me now that I've said that.
Yeah.
And so I pick up the Xbox controller to give it a go on a level that people are kind of stuck on, and I think to myself, oh yeah, I'm going to be great at this game. And you know who's going to see me be great at this game? Why? Not yet, not boyfriend. And then, listeners, would you believe that actually I was not good at the game? In fact, I was quite bad at the game. Given that Portal is a game, especially in local co-op, which requires good, 3D visualization. Something which I have been bad at always. So instead, I made a fool of myself in front of NYCBB. And thus, my hatred of Portal was born.
So basically, in our split screen blogs, I misidentified you as an Ida when you're really a Bakugo.
You would be correct. I felt that way when I was watching My Hero Academia. I was like, Bakugo's always been the best, and so, he expects to be the best, and I was like, That's me. And fun fact, that's why New York has been so hard. That's why I'm bad at change. Hashtag games for change. Hashtag never change.
Never change.
Anyway, so thus stems my hatred of Portal. You know, I'm willing to admit the vast majority of it comes from, like, my wounded pride. But also it came from, like, it was really frustrating. I'm about to say I was really bad at the game, which I realize is yet another reason, like, not another reason to think the game is bad.
Yeah.
Because I'm bad at it. But it was really hard. I had a not great first experience with the game. And I've clung to that as something formative about how I feel about video games.
Mm-hmm.
In the same way as I'm not very good at Super Smash.
Mm-hmm.
And so I also think that's a bad game.
Mm-hmm.
That's fine though, right?
It's fine. It's fine to have different opinions. It's fine to not want to be terrible at something.
I was taught in theater school, though, that you ought to separate your opinion about something from the objective quality of it.
Well, sure, if you're going to... I mean, that's what we should do on this podcast now that you've acknowledged your bias. But that doesn't mean you have to, like, go back to Portal and play it a lot because you see its objective value versus your subjective experience with it.
But that, Emma, is where you're wrong, because guess what I did? Not 2 hours prior to recording this episode. That's right, listeners. I plunked down $9.99 on Steam to purchase Valve Corporation's very own game, Portal, for the Mac.
The first one this time.
Not only did I do that, but I attempted to go to GameStop.
Oh, God.
GameStop was out of stock of the orange box that I was hoping to purchase.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and they had it. When I went a month ago and bought like 3 80-hour games, I should have bought Portal, but we hadn't pulled it from the hat yet, and I wasn't about to buy Portal. Come on, I hate Portal. But I should have bought it then, because I'm pretty sure they had it then, and they did not have it this time. I checked twice.
Mm-hmm. But how was your return to Portal? I will admit, like, I've watched some video of it, which I assume is probably different than playing it, as I always assume, but it's kind of, like, disorienting, sort of motion sicky.
I haven't found it motion sicky, although I am pretty prone to that, so we'll see if that happens as the puzzles get more complicated. I mean, I'll admit it, it's been, like, much less unpleasant, not just, like, jumping into a really difficult co-op level that, like, 10, 18-year-olds couldn't figure out.
Mm-hmm.
So that's been easier. I've just gotten to the point now where I have, like, the double portal gun.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that it's gonna go downhill for me real fast at this point. Because I am just not very good at spatial analysis. I'm so not good at it that I, like, tell that to all of my math tutoring students. I'm always like, I'm bad at this, so, like, here's how we're gonna do it.
Mm-hmm.
And granted, I say that to them about everything, so that they'll, like, identify with me and be like, oh, she's dumb too, like, great. But in that case, it's actually true. So basically, I do think it's going to go rapidly downhill for me at this point moving forward, but so far it's been okay, although I don't think that GLaDOS and I are going to get along at all.
Yeah. Yeah.
She's real annoying.
She's not very glad.
A dose. She does need a dose of my GLaDOS joke that I made at the beginning.
Yeah.
No, she was just like, there was one puzzle, and, like, I was having a hard time with it, but it actually wasn't very hard. But the whole time she was like, we made an impossible puzzle. Like, you should probably quit. This one's impossible. And I was like, ugh. And I feel like that's why I thought it was hard, because the whole time this, like, dumb robot was like, it's hard, it's hard, it's hard.
You just gotta tune out the dumb robot. That's what we'll be doing one day when they take over the world.
I know, this really is just a flash forward to, like, Alexa in just a couple years.
Alexa creepily laughing.
Seriously.
With no input from anyone.
Yep. You think that's not what it's gonna be? Oh, also, do you want to know something else embarrassing?
Sure. I always want to know embarrassing things about you.
This is just like me telling embarrassing stories about me in Portal. So, like, I've been telling Clickbait Boyfriend, and now, like, we're back in 2018, and Clickbait Boyfriend is actually Clickbait Boyfriend. I've been like, ever since he finally caught up on the podcast, and he was like, oh, like, I'm excited for the Portal episode, like, Portal. Because he likes Portal, right? He owned it. He's the traitor who friggin' owns Portal. He's played through the entire game, like, what a loser. And so, like, for the past couple days, he's been singing this song. It's, like, about, like, aperture science. And, like, Clickbait Boyfriend listens to, like, weird music.
Uh-huh.
Not, like, I've come to love it in time, but he listens to a lot of heavy metal, but not only that, he listens to a lot of math rock, which maybe listeners know what that is. I didn't know what it was until, but just, like, complicated, like, technical music.
Sure.
And a lot of it just has, like, weird lyrics, and, like, it's kind of philosophical in a lot of ways sometimes, which he's into. But he's been singing this song about, like, aperture science for the past couple days. I've been like, what is this weird song that like, he's singing? I've never heard this one before. He must be off, like, a new album or something. Like, it's weird that he's singing it.
God.
And, like, and also, like, right before I was gonna, like, he's got a little further into it. Like, sort of right before I was going to buy Portal, and it, like, said something about cake, and I was like, that's weird. This song said something about cake, like, right before I'm going to play Portal. And I think it's a song from the end.
Yeah, I think so, too.
So,
but see, this is a lesson to everyone who gets upset about spoilers on the internet. If there's no context, they're not spoilers.
Well, until people realize they're spoilers.
Sure. Fine.
Speaking of cake, by the way, well, one, that line is something that's like, well, that's a huge spoiler, but everybody knows it, right?
Yeah, at that point, like, you can't exist on the internet without having heard some spoilers, I feel like.
Yeah.
You know?
But I have a funny quote from the game's writer, Eric Woolpaw, about, like, the origins of the cake that I just thought was really, really funny and I want to share. So he says, at the beginning of the Portal development process, which, sidebar, I want to talk about because I think it's sort of cool how it came to be. But anyway, back to the quote. We sat down as a group to decide what philosopher or school of philosophy our game would be based on. That was followed by about 15 minutes of silence. And then someone mentioned that a lot of people like cake. So,
you know, that's fine.
That's my big, like, middle finger to Clickbait Boyfriend on this one. Of, like, you love Portal, Portal hates you. And everything you believe in.
I like that. Now I'm going to, like, think of, like, lots of game studios doing that. Of, like, that's their first game concepting thing. Like, the Persona series, like, sat down and they're like, you know, I'm really into young right now. You know? And then the people at Valve were like, cake.
Maybe I should get Clickbait Boyfriend on this. Just be like, what philosophy? Oh, I should actually get him. He's been, like, laughing his head off over this, like, Super Smash Bros. Thing where the guy goes through and, like, says, like, what kind of philosophy each character would be into. It's like, funny, but it's more funny to watch him think it's really funny. So I wanted to talk a little bit about the development of this game because I feel like it should give you, Emma, some hope for the future.
Sure.
So, do you know about the development of Portal?
Not very much. It's made by Valve, who can't count to 3, and / doesn't make games anymore. That's really all I know.
Sure, it is made by Valve, but before it was made by Valve, Portal, in its, like, germ stage, was a game called Narbacular Drop.
Catchy.
Yeah, which was a game made by a bunch of students at a DigiPen Institute of Technology, like game design students. And Portal, not Portal, oh my god. Somebody from Valve came to their career fair, saw the game, liked it, hired them all to come on board and make Portal.
Well.
Does that give you hope for the future?
Kind of. I don't know how often that happens anymore.
Sure. But it did happen once.
Okay.
Isn't that all you need?
It's like Jennifer Lawrence, you know?
True.
It's like, oh man, that could happen to me. No, it can't. It can't happen to you. You're not Jennifer Lawrence. Stop fooling yourself.
That's always what I tell people when they ask about, like, Madelyn, are you going to act anymore? I'm always like, oh, if Steven Spielberg saw me on the street and was like, I want you in my movie, then I guess. That's my form answer. I don't know why it's Steven Spielberg. I should switch it to someone cooler, but whatever.
Yeah, Steven Spielberg is a little bit, not so cool. Not so hip and edgy anymore.
I know. I need to pick somebody else. I really should pick a lady director to, like, you know, rep what I do here.
Greta Gerwig.
If Greta Gerwig saw me on the street and was like, you, I'd be like, okay.
Yeah. There you go.
Thanks for helping me update that.
You're welcome.
Anyway, other fun facts about Portal. It sold 4 million copies, except that doesn't include copies sold on Steam, which, you know, I've just been reading about this past week or so. We've, like, lost any ability to know how many downloads a game has on Steam.
Yeah, it's like Netflix, basically, now.
But they had such a... Like, the workaround seemed so cool. There was some workaround that had to do... I don't quite remember what it was. I'll post an article about it this week, maybe. But it was, like, a really... Like, these download numbers were never public, but people had found, like, kind of a, like, neat way... Oh, I know what it was. It was about, like, the ratings of the game or something like that. And, like, what percentage. And it used to be, like, the decimal point would go on, like, forever. And you could use that to figure out, like, what's the minimum number of downloads that would have produced, like, this percentage. But now they've cut that off to just, like, one decimal point. For no reason, it seems like, except to stop this from happening.
Yeah. Steam is problematic.
Oh my god. I mean, yeah,
but
appropriate, but
that's
like,
not what this episode is at all about. Valve has always made, like, all their games are, like, classic games. But they don't do that anymore. They pretend to work on Steam.
Roasted.
It's kind of the truth, though.
So we should probably wrap up this Portal section of the game.
Yes.
But one last fun fact before we go. Did you know that the cake is based on a real cake?
Wow, what cake?
From a bakery. It's like Regal Bakery or something like that. A Black Forest cake. And they claim that since the release of the game, they have actually seen an increase in sales of that particular cake.
Wow.
So, games for change, people.
Support your local bakery. Make a game about cake.
I'm very fixated on bakeries right now. So I thought that was interesting.
Very interesting.
That's what I'll use. That's what I'll use to sell my pie ply. I'll, like, go to bakeries. I'll be like, you know how Portal helped this one cake sell? We can do that for you on a much, much smaller scale.
Yes. You know where there are no bakeries?
If you have an Abzû.
In the ocean.
Oh, I thought you were talking about, like, to get an Abzû, you can't really freak.
Oh, that's
those.
true. You know what you can't have when you want to get some Abzû? Cake.
No, you did that backwards.
Anyway, we're talking about Abzû next, which has been in our hat so long, and it's almost 2 years old now. But that's fine.
Technically, it was not released on console until 2017.
So it's fine.
It has sort of aged out of the category, as it was originally released on digital for, like, computers in August 2016.
You know, the new game category, like, I think it gets fine if it's 1 or 2 years, especially during, like, slow seasons like it is right now, because God help me if I can find games that are interesting enough to put in the hat that are new releases.
Maybe we need to drain the hat a little bit. You know, not replace things.
Not replace things? Yeah, maybe. I don't know. Well, that's a discussion for
This is not
offline.
a Talk This Strategy meeting right here. Instead, we're talking about Abzû, which, despite my many jokes, is not spelled like Abzû.
Yeah.
It's ABZU with the circumflex. Which, like, I thought it was really funny. I was like, apparently the circumflex gave them, like, a lot of coding trouble.
Yeah.
And I was like, why? It's not that vital. Like, if it was giving you trouble, like, why did you keep it?
Yeah, I don't know what the circumflex is from, because I was looking at, like, Wikipedia. I was trying to find out what Abzû means, and unless Wikipedia just doesn't do accents, which I think it does, but it's, like, Akkadian for, like, deep water, and it's the name for fresh water from underground aquifers, which was given a religious fertilizing quality in Sumerian and Akkadian mythology.
So, actually, it's also the name of a god.
Okay.
Like a river god. That's spelled differently in, like, Sumerian and Akkadian, which, if you're not up on your world of history, are some of those early Mesopotamian Tigris and Euphrates river valley civilizations. So, obviously, rivers, very important. But the Akkadians kind of come later than the Sumerians. And they're, like, really warlike, I think, if I'm remembering the right ones. But anyway, so they kind of mashed the two spellings together. One of them was, like, Abzû with the circumflex. I don't really know how you pronounce that differently. And one of them was Abzû without it, and so they kind of mashed them.
That makes sense. And in this strategy meeting, fun fact, they sat down and asked everybody what philosophy you're into right now. And somebody said, I'm really into ancient Mesopotamian religion. That's totally true. Look it up online.
Somebody was like, Hammurabi's Code. And they were like, that's a little too mainstream. Let's take it back.
Everybody knows about Hammurabi's Code. You need something a little more edgy than that.
Alternately, I have a better way to tell this story, Emma. You really missed an opportunity here.
Oh, okay.
So, they were in a strategy meeting, and of course, because it's a video game company, they were like, okay, guys, what philosopher or philosophy do we want to base this one on? And some idiot was like, and they were like, the capital of Sumer. Great idea, Brad.
Yeah. Brad, the true creative mind behind Abzû. No, in fact, the creative director, we haven't talked about Journey on this podcast, but you know what Journey is, right?
I own the game, in fact.
You do own the game. Or I own the game and then gave it to you.
Well, it now resides at Talk This NYC HQ, so I might as well own it.
But the creative director is Matt Nava, who is Journey's art director. And they also have the same composer, Austin Wintory, I think. Mm-hmm. So Abzû is very much, from what I've seen of it, I was going to buy it and play it, but it's $19.99, and come on, people. Who do you think I am? Money? Miss Money? No.
It's only a 90-minute game.
I know. I thought it was expensive. I was like, if it had been $9.99, I would have bought it and played some of it, but not $19.99.
I don't know. I'm undermining my own industry. I'm like, 90 minutes of entertainment for $20? Like, forget that.
I know. There's a whole interesting extra credits thing on, like, why games being $60 is kind of unreasonable nowadays. But $19.99 was still too expensive for me for this. But Abzû, from what I've seen of it, seems to be kind of like Journey light. Or maybe like deeper Journey, because it's less like
literally
story, literally, yeah. It's less sort of story accessible. Like Journey doesn't really have a story, but you sort of get the goal. In Abzû, it doesn't really seem like you have like a goal. There's no light on a cliff that you're trying to get to. You just seem to be like going through the underwater stuff. Yeah,
so for listeners who are unfamiliar with Journey and Abzû,
okay, true.
Journey is a similarly visually stunning game from 2012, is that right?
Somewhere around there, from that game company.
Yes, from that game company, which, like, dang it, there goes my game company name. Mine'll be which game company.
That'll get really confusing. You should have like a joint promo with them. Which game company? That game company.
That'll be funny. I'm sure they'd love to partner with me on my games that don't exist.
But Journey was the culmination of that game company's creative partnership with Sony, or a creative deal with Sony. They made Flow, and then they made Flower. Flower is also a really great game. I have not really played Flow. And then they made Journey, which won a Grammy for its soundtrack. It was featured in some museums, won a lot of awards. It's a experience of a journey that's
through a desert.
Yes,
is sort of what I wanted to get to.
Yes, so Abzû is underwater journey with a little bit less goal-oriented. Yeah. And I thought it was interesting. I was reading the reviews of it. I thought it was interesting that it got such good reviews, and this sparked a conversation that I wanted to have with you. So, Abzû almost universally gets, things that fall into the quote-unquote great category through these numerical ranking scales, right? Like, very rarely did I see a review for it that was less than an 8 out of 10. But in all of these reviews, it felt to me like they were all saying, like, yeah, like, there's not really any gameplay, but it's really beautiful and powerful. Yeah.
And I feel like you have strong feelings about this, and I'm a little bit more wishy-washy with where I stand, which is appropriate for a game that's, like, underwater, but haha. But how do you feel about the whole, like, quote-unquote, there's not really very much gameplay kind of critique?
It depends on what website you're writing for one thing. So if you're trying to recommend it to your audience as opposed to making like an impartial review, I think it's fair to critique it based on what your audience holds for a game as opposed to just generally. I think that like not much gameplay should only really be a critique if it feels like something that should have more gameplay, if you know what I mean. Like if the lack of gameplay is fitting to the experience that they want to provide, then the lack of gameplay is fitting. Like you can still mention that, right? Like you want someone to leave your review knowing whether or not they'll like it, whether or not the reviewer liked it, right? That's the goal of a good review, in my opinion. So like mentioning all the aspects that you think the audience will see important, but then also conveying whether or not it seemed to work within the experience the game wanted to provide. Both those things are important when reviewing anything, but particularly a game.
We're talking a lot this week about kind of opinions and game criticism and personal opinions, and I think that's cool. That's kind of all coming together this week. I don't know. I feel like I have a hard time, because I am so conditioned to think of games as like there has to be a lot of action and there has to be things happening and I want to be as involved in it, and what's special about games is that I'm involved. I feel weird when I hear about games that quote unquote don't have very much gameplay.
Yeah.
Because it does feel to me like, well, it's a game. The whole point is that it has gameplay. Like that's why it's a game.
Yeah. What's interesting though is what I find interesting at least is there seems to be within criticism like I'm pretty sure in Abzû you're controlling the person the whole time.
Yeah.
Right? So in that sense there's lots of gameplay. You're always playing it. Right? And like in Edith Finch there's lots of gameplay. You're always playing it. Whereas with stuff, for instance, like The Last of Us or Uncharted or any of those things, like, sure, you shoot a lot of people, but there's a lot of time also where you're watching, right? And I'm not saying that's a bad thing either, necessarily, as long as it fits the game you're trying to make. But, like, it's interesting to see, like, the differentiation made between that. Like, if you're not doing something active and like, scoring points in some way, or points as a symbol, not necessarily a literal
point
thing,
score.
then that doesn't count as gameplay.
And that's sort of what I wanted to get to. Because, yeah, I feel like gameplay is almost always used as a shorthand for you're shooting something or you're punching something or there's some kind of danger of a game over state.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And if your game especially doesn't have that kind of game over state, then it's kind of labeled as not having gameplay.
Yeah.
I just think it's interesting that that's what that word has come to mean. And disappointing. Because when I read that, me as a gaming person kind of winces a little bit. Like, oh, it doesn't have very much gameplay. That reads to me as, this is boring.
Yeah.
Which I know it shouldn't. And it's a reflex that I'm trying to fight and not have when I read that. But right now, when I read it, I think to myself, this is boring. This is a boring game because there's not very much gameplay. And why would I spend $20 for something that doesn't have very much gameplay?
Yeah.
Especially if I'm going to be watching it on my TV that is the same size as my computer screen. Or my computer screen.
Mm-hmm.
If all you're doing... And another thing is, so many of these things are marketed on there, and it's always stunning visuals. Whenever I'm always looking up these games for the podcast, or new games especially, because I'm not super up to date on the indie game sphere. I'm getting better as this podcast approaches a year and a half old. It's more than a year and a half old. I'm getting better now that our podcast is a toddler. But I'm still not nearly as up to date on it as Emma, so I'm always having to look up these new games, because as you hear at the end of every episode, I'm always like, what the heck is that? What's an Abzû? But always, so, the first thing that comes up is Wikipedia, and then the second thing that comes up is the developer page for the game on Google. And you get that little, one-line summary on Google, and it's always some kind of pull quote or... something that says, oh, a stunning visual, stunningly beautiful game from the creators of this. Mm-hmm. And that's great. And I had my first real experience, that's not true, but I had the watching the Kingdom Hearts 3 trailer really made me be like, wow, visuals, how far these have come.
Yeah.
That was a cool moment where the visuals actually made me feel something. But mostly because they were in contrast to, games from 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And mostly because I had not so long ago been making fun of Schmorlando Schmoom. And there he was looking actually like Orlando Bloom.
Yeah.
So I get the appeal of cool visuals, but also I feel like so much of the gaming world, not just, in AAA, obviously, we're moving more and more towards lifelike.
Yeah.
Really lifelike. But in indie, I feel like we're moving more and more towards, arty, beautiful, not much is happening here, gameplay, quote-unquote, wise, but isn't it beautiful?
Yeah.
And that's not why I play games.
Yeah.
And I'm willing to admit that's because I do not have very good hardware, and even beautiful games don't look that great on my stuff.
Yeah.
But, I don't know. As someone who is interested in gameplay as it's used, it particularly drives me away when a review I see is it's beautiful and there's no gameplay.
Yeah. I mean, I understand that.
It just seems like a very shallow game, whereas I know that probably this game is very, very cool and I would enjoy it. But when it's marketed to me as look at this beautiful painting, basically, it turns me off.
Yeah. I mean, for me, when I was reading reviews of this and sort of looking at it, because I've played Journey and Flower and was so moved by those experiences, looking at it, it's well, this sort of looks like those, but, not those.
But,
You know
what it made me think of, though, when I was looking at all this stuff?
What?
I was like, this is like that VR game that almost made Emma throw up.
True. It is kind of like Lost City of Myrrh. I mean, in a good way. Both of those are very pretty underwater environments. I assume Abzû would have slightly less vision coming back with the seal inside your face.
There is a guiding shark in this one, though, so who knows?
Yes, there is.
But I guess that gets to my point, is I feel like all of these games are trying to be like, it's beautiful, it's immersing, there's not much that happens. It's like, great, if that's the game you want to make a VR game.
Yeah.
Because you're not, like, this can't, if your game, if that Mer game had, like, really worked.
Yeah, I would have really liked it if it really worked, I'm pretty sure.
And it would have been 10 times more impactful, 100 times more impactful than this game.
Sure, yeah.
Because, like, you're literally there. I mean, that's maybe not fair. I shouldn't say that, because then I'm like, oh, movies are 1,000 times more impactful than theater. Never hire me again. And, you know, that's not true, of course, you know, at all. Everything is there for its purpose. But it feels to me like if you're just trying to make a game that is, like, very, very beautiful and immersive, that you need to be transitioning to VR, like, ASAP.
Yeah, I do think so, too. Again, it all depends on what you're trying to do. Right? So, like you said, if you're just trying to make an immersive experience, I think VR is definitely a platform that's going to offer a lot of creative freedom on that thing. I don't think something like Journey, for instance, would be weird in VR, in my opinion, because part of it is, like, seeing this little dude running around and stuff and being able to jump and everything. Like, there's so much... One thing VR is going to struggle with until we get to, like, you know, the high-tech visors that, you know, you can lie down and feel like you're in the game, you know, is going to be motion. It's just, like, anything that's, like, motion-based is hard.
Sure.
You know? Or, like, especially if it's, like, fast motion. Because it's just too disorienting of your body not moving at all, but your eyes moving. So that's always going to be a struggle. So there's still, you know, it's not necessarily that, like, if you're just trying to make an immersive experience, then go to VR. But I felt like Flower and Journey had more narrative purpose, if that makes sense.
Definitely.
Felt like it was a small story, but it felt like they were telling a story to you.
I value narrative in my games, and I think that there are plenty of games that don't, and I just personally have a hard time connecting with those games.
Yeah.
So I guess that brings us to this point in our episode where we have to mash these two games together.
Oh, actually, one more thing, because you brought up Kingdom Hearts. I'm just amazed by, like, how many games... Like, Abzû is also Unreal Engine, and Kingdom Hearts 3 is Unreal Engine. And I just got Octopath Traveler the day we recorded this, which is also Unreal Engine. It's just amazing to me how many different types of games you can make on this singular engine. Like, I sort of knew that, but having been exposed to all these ones in a short period of time, I'm like, geez. What can you not do on Unreal Engine? Probably some stuff, because other people use other engines.
Well,
but
real things.
What?
Real things.
Oh, yeah, real things. You're right.
Real engines not allowed.
Yeah.
Whatever, Final Fantasy 15, or they're driving around in a car, can't be done.
It's true, that's not on Unreal Engine.
It's a real engine.
That's on whatever that... Their proprietary engine was.
Real engine.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Real Engine Enix.
On that weak joke note, let's try to mash these two games together.
Okay.
So, like, obviously whatever game we create has to be pretty short.
Yes.
This is not an expansive game we're creating. It's a pretty short gameplay experience.
So maybe... you're in sort of an underwater environment, and instead of making the portals yourself, there are already these weird portals all over the place, and you have to try to figure out how to make your way to certain locations through using these portals, while also sort of experiencing, like, the beautiful nature that these portals take you through.
And there's a robot seahorse who guides you.
Yes.
Snarky
and
pets.
it's a jerk. It's a jerky seahorse. What is a mean underwater animal?
I mean sharks, but not really, right?
Yeah.
Like an eel.
Yeah. Although, who knows? Maybe the Little Mermaid gave eels a bad name, too.
A snapping turtle.
Yeah, that's true. It snaps at you.
Yeah.
So it's gotta be mean.
A piranha. That's okay, but I feel like... So the problem with mashing these together is, like, Portal is deliberately very gray. I was reading about this, too, that they made it all gray and really boring, and I noticed this while I was playing the game. Because in playtesting, when they had sort of a more colorful, elaborate version, people kept trying to shoot portals onto things that were just decorative.
Yeah,
They were like,
yeah, I can see how that would be a problem, yeah.
Yeah. So it's interesting to mash up a game which kind of deliberately eschewed visual appeal of any kind.
Yeah.
With a game that 80% of its appeal is visual.
Yeah. I mean, that's part of the reason why, in the suggestion I just made, I took out the ability to make portals yourself. Right? They're already there. So you can sort of work those into the environment and not have to worry about, like, players trying to shoot things that you can't shoot.
Is there a pastry of some kind at the end?
There's a... I can't think of a joke.
Wow. You thought you had something good and there was nothing.
Nope, I really tried. I raced through the short list of sea creatures that I know in my head and came up pretty short.
Nice. I don't know. I feel like, again, I don't know. I wouldn't buy that game. The portals do give it a little bit more of an element of mystery, which I enjoy, but I want the portal shooting. I want to keep the portal shooting somehow.
Okay.
Or at least some kind of, like, puzzle element to it.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like having all of the portals pre-created removes the puzzle aspect, which is I feel like pretty much the main element of Portal. Sure, we have the whole, like Portal's main elements are puzzles, 3D visualization, boring environment, snarky robot, cake. And Abzû's are beautiful environment, not much story, very little narrative.
Yeah. Well, maybe you keep, like, you can change the colors of the portals.
Oh, to get you different places.
Yeah.
I kind of like that.
Because that does add a little bit more of a puzzle element, but it does eliminate that design problem that you brought up of not knowing where you can create the portals.
I like that. Yeah. And that's a much more kind of basic puzzle technique, right? If I just sort of flip different switches or press different seashells. But I like that. It sort of marries the two. It's a little simpler than Portal, but it still adds a puzzle element and could be creative.
Yeah.
I want to put it on the, you think you're in the ocean, but really you find out about 2/3 of the way through the game that you're in outer space.
That's not bad.
Right?
The ocean is, pretty much like outer space.
That's what I was thinking. I was like, you think you're in some kind of weird apocalyptic ocean, and you're floating like that's the case, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it turns out that you're actually a space diver. You're an space diver. You're an astronaut.
Yeah.
I kind of like that.
Yeah, it's not bad.
And and then at the end, you're supposed to be getting some ice cream, but you discover that it's astronaut ice cream, and it sucks.
Darn!
The end.
That turns the game instantly into a tragedy.
Seriously.
That's a true tragedy.
Game of the year right there.
It really says some things about the existence of humanity, you know?
What is the purpose,
our screams into the void, all for the sake of ice cream.
What is the purpose of being alive if the only ice cream you're going to have is astronaut ice cream? Really?
Yeah, honestly.
Would you like to have ice cream at all? It would be better to have no ice cream.
It really would. Because you would just torture yourself with the astronaut ice cream. You know? You'd go into it saying, maybe this time it'll recreate the flavor I loved so much as a child. And you'd psych yourself up and you'd take a bite and it'd just be disappointment all over again.
Yeah, it's like you're searching, we would give the ice cream a name that sounds like you're searching for something really important. And then again,
But it's just ice cream.
At some point you kind of realize it's ice cream, and then you get there and it's astronaut ice cream.
Yeah.
Perfect.
I think that's good. That's perfect.
I like it. It's got kind of a WALL-E feel to it, too. Like some of that.
Yeah.
You know? Good. I like it. Wow, I feel like those were some successful game mashups, both of them.
Yeah. That was pretty good.
By our standards, anyway.
Nice, buyable thing. 1999.
Put anything underwater and it's viable, right?
Very true.
Set a game underwater, it's like, great, sold.
You know, there aren't that many games set underwater.
Yet.
I know.
It doesn't have to have a story, is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
If you feel like you want to make a game but you have no idea what to make it about, just put somebody underwater.
Tell me a game set underwater. Because I can't think of one.
Lost City of Myr. I'm just
That's
thinking
true.
all the VR games. All the VR games are underwater.
Okay. But tell me just a non-VR game that's set underwater. This is a question for the listeners, too.
Yeah, I don't
know
actually know off the top of my head.
There's some underwater stuff in, like, Uncharted. There's Atlantica. And then I'm out.
There's some underwater Mario levels.
That's true, yeah.
Does Little Big Planet have underwater levels?
Oh, possibly, yeah.
But a full game? I don't know.
Yeah. Are there any games about, like, mermen?
Like the fish tank game. You know, the Milena was playing.
Oh, yeah.
You care for your fish. There's not that much narrative in that one either, though. Other than the circle of life.
Okay, so, Madeline, do you want to run down the spiel?
You betcha. Thanks for tuning in this week, listeners. It's been a really interesting episode of Talk This for me. Hope it's been the same for you, Emma. And I really hope that it's been an interesting episode for you listeners, because really, you're what it's all about. As much as I love talking to my sister about video games for an hour or so each week, we love even more sharing our thoughts with you. And we want you to share our thoughts with us. So if you want to follow us on social media, you can find us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, all of those at Talk This Podcast, where you can see me share like one of the articles I say I'll share each week on the episode. Just kidding, I'll actually do it this week. And gaming memes, and just our game thoughts, and one of these days I'm going to start doing Instagram stories like while I'm playing with my quippy little comments and that sort of thing. So you should really follow us for all those, and you'll also follow us for updates on everything that's up on our website, which is www.talkthispodcast.com, where on our blog, you can see all sorts of blog series. We talked this week a lot about Clickbait Boyfriend, who got that moniker playing through Kingdom Hearts as a newbie. His final edition of Kingdom Hearts 2 will go up this week, and then, spoilers, don't get too sad, because we are going to dive right on in to his thoughts on Birth by Sleep. Spoilers, it doesn't make more sense to him, it might make less.
Do I feature in any of the Birth by Sleep blogs?
I don't know. You might.
Yes.
You should, if you
I'm
don't.
gonna make a guest spot on the Clickbait Boyfriend.
Speaking of this, which we might have a Clickbait Girlfriend guest post from Clickbait Boyfriend, because he's watching me play Portal. And I guess I've said some funny things. Is it bad that I'm shooting the security cameras? They keep telling me it's bad.
I don't know, Madeline.
Well, we'll find out at the end of the game, won't we?
Yeah.
So that might happen. He was excited about writing a guest post. But also, we talked this week about our newest weekly blog series, which is Split Screen, where Emma and I watch half an episode of K-drama Boys Over Flowers and one full episode of classic anime My Hero Academia each week, and give our thoughts. So basically, it's just like the Dangerous Schools TV club, club.
Yeah.
So join us. You can watch the episodes, or you can just read our thoughts. I think it's pretty funny either way.
Yeah.
Also on the blog, there's Buzz This. There's just occasional game thoughts. We post all sorts of stuff on the blog. You should really follow it. Also, it has Emma's little episode summaries with all of the nice little information we talked about, so you can check those out. And on our website, you can also find all the places to listen to the podcast. If you're a fan, you should subscribe to us. We're pretty much anywhere you can find podcasts, but specifically we're on Apple Podcasts, we're on Google Podcasts / Google Play, we're on Spotify, we're on TuneIn, we're on the other one,
Stitcher, and basically any podcast directory app that your phone has.
We are there. If you're on some kind of podcast directory and you can't find us, drop us a line on any of our social medias or talk to us at talkthispodcast.com or on our comment page on our website, and we'll work on getting us up there, but we really are up in all the major places. And if you liked this episode, why don't you give us a rate and a review or tweet about us and tell all your friends, because we like to spread the Talk This Gospel near and far.
Yes.
I think I covered all the... Oh, also, last thing, goodness gracious, we're also on YouTube.
Yes. Right.
We're Talk This Sisters on YouTube, where most notably you can see Emma's gameplay as storytelling analysis video blog, Play This, which is posted on a monthly basis. We're coming up on one, aren't we?
Yep. In case you're wondering, I'm still refining sort of the title, but this month should be on games that handle or don't handle having story and gameplay that don't entirely fit together, featuring the Yakuza series and probably Final Fantasy 15.
I'm excited about that one. Also on there, Flashback Friday has been on a little bit of a hiatus as I've just started a new internship, and I'm still trying to kind of work out my schedule. But I'm hoping that it will be back next week. We've got our kind of short episode flashbacks that you can check out on Flashback Friday if you don't want to listen to our whole back catalog, just want the highlights. And there's also the Clickbait Boyfriend mini vlogs, which go along with the Clickbait Boyfriend blogs.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, Emma, we should pick the games.
Yeah. So I haven't remade the hats, but I found this thing online that just randomly picks things from a list. So I put both the old games and the new games in there. So that's how we're going to do it this time. It's totally random instead of me feeling around being like, ooh, that's a nice size.
You don't need me anymore is what you're saying.
Yeah, I don't need you anymore. You can sign off, Madelyn. Goodbye. It's just my show now.
Have a bad week.
So, we're going to do the old game first. So we're going to pick a random item. We're doing Fallout.
Nice.
Sounds good.
Classic. I actually know what that one is.
There you go. That's all you need. And for our new game, we are doing Getting Over It with Bennett Foddy.
What?
So look forward to that episode.
I have
That'll be one.
No idea what that is, but sounds like it's going to be a terrible mashup. That'll be in 2 weeks. Next week, tune in for one of our side quests. We were a little bit out of the normal form last week, so we had some guest hosts and some games for change to talk about. We'll be back to our normal Side Quest 4.0 news magazine format with the adventures. Well, there haven't been I guess there'll be Adventures of Champ McDude this week, our weather report, our traffic forecast, our fortnightly question, and our off-topic corner.
Yes.
So that brings us to the signing off portion of the podcast. Emma, you or me?
You do it.
All right, folks. I hope this week you make just a teeny tiny progress on building an Abzû of your own.